And Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick on this Wednesday morning. A great shot on the TV side of beautiful downtown Lansing, the Capitol Dome on this, it's crisp. It's a chilly winter morning, and tonight the State of the State address, the first ever by the new governor, our nerd, Rick Snyder. Not my word. That's what he campaigned on. I'm not using that as a pejorative. But did he not say I'm a hardworking nerd or whatever it was he said in the campaign? But that was his tagline. That's how he got known by the people. And the people of Michigan said, yeah, hey, that's a good idea. A nerd for governor. So that's what we got. And we'll get the State of the State address from him tonight. And Amanda, you were telling me during the break that he's planning on working in dog years. He wants to accomplish in 1 year what would normally be done in 7, because, they say a dog lives 7 years for every one human year.
Right. He wants to speed everything up and make sure everything gets done a lot quicker. So that's the analogy he's using. So essentially, I'm guessing he wants everything done 7 times faster.
That would seem to be the case. Tom Shields is joining us now.
He should be.
Oh, very good then.
Is his name on the screen? If his name's on the screen, and then he's on the line.
Well, what I've got, it says on air is on the screen.
Well, that means that we're working on connecting.
Oh, okay, very good. We will be joined momentarily by Tom Shields of the Marketing Resource Group, and we will talk about Governor Snyder's State of the State address coming up tonight, 7 o'clock, the beginning of that speech. We have a politically packed program for you this morning in the 8 o'clock hour, right at the top of the hour, as a matter of fact. We'll be joined by Michael Reagan, President Reagan's son, who has a new book out about why he believes that if America returned to the policies of Ronald Reagan, America would be a better place. Of course, at the same time, President Reagan's other son, Ron, has a book out in which he asserts that President Reagan was showing signs of Alzheimer's disease while he was still in office. And as you can imagine, that has made quite a splash. I actually saw Michael Reagan last night on the Lawrence O'Donnell program on MSNBC, The Last Word, and they had a very spirited and I thought interesting discussion. We'll see if we can't replicate that right here later this morning on MPS in the Morning. Also, in the 7 o'clock hour, we will be joined by Senator Debbie Stabenow. I believe she's the chairperson of the Agriculture Committee, a very important post in the U.S. Senate. We will talk to her. I'm not sure how much we can talk to her about agriculture right now, but I do want to get her take on what the House is doing with respect to their proposed repeal of the health care law. And along those lines, Mike Rogers, the congressman from Brighton, will join us after Senator Stabenow. We'll get his take as he sits in the House, and we'll be debating today and then voting tonight on the repeal of the health care law. And just so everyone's clear, even if the House does vote to repeal, which is seen as likely because the Republicans now have a majority in the House, there certainly is no guarantee that the Senate would go along with that repeal. And were they to, there's certainly no guarantee that President Obama would do anything but veto such a repeal. So it may just be a case of political grandstanding. We'll talk with Congressman Rogers and Senator Stabenow about those issues a little later on this morning. It is Wildcat Wednesdays, presented by Northern Michigan University. We are now joined by Tom Shields. Tom Shields of the Marketing Resource Group. Tom, always a big night when the governor delivers the State of the State for the first time in 8 years. It's not going to be Governor Granholm behind the podium tonight, but Rick Snyder. And what are you looking for? What do you expect he's going to tell the people of Michigan tonight?
I think there's high expectations for the speech, probably for the first time then, since maybe Jennifer Granholm's first speech. And I think that, you're going to see this governor, I think, focus mostly on jobs, economic development, how do we get the Michigan economy moving again. I think that's what the people of Michigan sort of want to hear. You'll also hear him, I think he's going to have to talk about some type of shared sacrifice or to balance the state budget, which is probably what the people around Lansing and the Capitol want to hear, how that's going to happen, how he's going to do that. Is he going to do that with new revenues, which I doubt, or is he going to do that with cuts? And I think that he's probably going to outline some of the things that have to be cut, but maybe not get into specifics here until the budget's presented.
What specifics did he run on in terms of cutting the Michigan budget?
Well, I think first of all, I just said he needed to right-size the government. That there's too much government. It's paid too much. It really needs to put government employees in line with where private business is, and I think that's what you're going to see. And I think you need to see that all the way down the line. And that studies have shown that that public employees are making more than the average non-public employee these days, and their benefits are way more than what the non-public employee is. So I think that's one of the things he's going to talk about. I think he's also going to take a look at some of the tax credits that are given, even to businesses, and say that, these are tax credits we are giving out that are really expenditures by our state, and maybe we should look at eliminating some of these, and that they're not very efficient. They're not really, generating new jobs and economic development. We need to take a look at some of those too. So those are a couple of things that he ran on. But I think mostly he ran on, is that turning this Michigan economy around and making this as a better place to do business. I think we'll see short-term, goals and programs where he maybe can offer programs that will immediately offer some jobs, and I think he'll offer long-term solutions to how do we, get government sort of off the back of business, make it more efficient to, get work with government, get its permits, get business moving. So government's not in the way, and that's really more of a partnership.
I got an email a couple of days ago from the school superintendent in the district where my daughter goes to school, and she said that she had heard that Governor Snyder is floating an idea which would combine K through 12 education funding with the community college budget in the state of Michigan, and that proposal, if it went through, would cost our district something on the order of $1,400 per student, which would, of course, be devastating. What have you heard about that?
Well, I think I think that what he's done is he's met with all of these various groups, from local school districts, businesses, and whatever. He's met with them all, and he's told them all to be prepared. Be prepared that we're all going to have to make sacrifices to get the state moving again. We're going to have to look at doing something different. I think what he has a unique opportunity here, because the public here is so frustrated with the economy after 8-10 years here of us being an economic downturn and spiral. I think that they're willing to accept solutions that they wouldn't have accepted before. So I think that those things that were off the charts before, that were not available because nobody wanted to touch the status quo, I think those are available to them. So he says he's going to be bold. I think it's going to be different. He's going to be looking at a different way to run government than what we've done in the past. He's got a business background, and he looks at things from that standpoint, and what's efficient, what's cost efficient, what delivers the services at the least cost for the Michigan taxpayer.
Tom, when you say
make some of those changes,
when you say he's going to be bold, do you expect he will be bold tonight?
I think he will be. I think he will see different things tonight. And again, if he's ever going to do it, he has to do it in his first day of the state. Once you get beyond the first day of the state, plus you've got this whole group you've got 90 new legislators over there, whole freshmen. They aren't stuck in the old ways of doing things. If you're ever going to get them to think of things differently, and I think they're prepared to do this. They all ran on the same type of platform. I think you're going to get bold suggestions tonight and programs and different ways to run government that he thinks that will be more efficient. And I think you got a legislator who may be willing to accept those.
All right, Tom, we'll look forward to the speech tonight. We appreciate your insights, and I'm sure we'll be touching base with you tomorrow to see how everything turned out.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. Good morning.
You bet. Thanks very much. Tom Shields from the Marketing Resources Group on tonight's State of the State Address. Let's shift gears quickly, give you a quick sports recap from last night. We touched on some of those headlines a while ago, but if you're just joining us, another bad night for Michigan State as the Spartans were on the road taking on the Illini. It did not go well. MSU falls to 12-6 overall, 4-2 in the Big Ten. They got knocked off by the Illini on the road, and Adam Ruff was there.
Last night's game was all about hot shooting and then not shooting for MSU as the Spartans scored just 5 points in the last 9 minutes of the game. As a result, MSU could not get over the hump in a 71-62 defeat at Illinois. The Spartans did show a lot of heart and solid defense, but just could not overcome their own 28% shooting performance on the offensive end of the floor in the second half. Up next for MSU is another road trip, this time to West Lafayette for a 9 p.m. tip on Saturday. And, of course, we will go on the air with the Tom Izzo pregame show at 8 o'clock. For MPS in the Morning, I'm Adam Ruff with the Spartan Sports Network.
Boy, you heard Adam mention the Spartans scored 5 points in the last 9 minutes last night. That's not going to get it done. They did pull off nifty comebacks against Wisconsin and Northwestern at home to force each of those games to overtime and ultimately win those two basketball games, but the comeback was not there for them last night. And one of the reasons the Spartans, who shot miserably in the second half last night, find themselves right now 146th in the nation in field goal percentage, 44.3%. And in points per game, MSU was ranked 110th in the nation, and those certainly are numbers that are not going to get it done for Michigan State. The Red Wings continue to forge ahead with all the injuries. They've got 5 starters and their number 1 and number 2 goaltenders all injured right now. Not a recipe for success when they were in Pittsburgh last night to play the Penguins, even if the Pens were going into battle without Sidney Crosby. And the wounded Wings limped out of Pittsburgh last night on the wrong end of a 4-1 score. Ken Kell, the voice of the Wings, with the story of that one.
The Penguins, without Sidney Crosby, skated to a 4-1 victory over the Red Wings last night in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh took a 2-0 first-period lead on an even-strength goal from Jordan Stahl and a penalty shot tally from Chris Connor. Trade outshot the Penguins 12-9 in the middle frame. Both teams traded goals. Johan Franzen scored his 20th of the campaign at 17:28, but 30 seconds later, Chris Kunitz beat Joey McDonald. It was a 3-1 Pittsburgh lead after 40 minutes. Matt Cook rounded out the scoring. He had an empty net goal late in the third period. Trade outshot the Penguins 37-29. Again, the final from Pittsburgh. The Penguins 4 and the Red Wings 1. That's the story from Consol Energy Center here in Pittsburgh. Now back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Ken. Armando Galarraga, 1 out away from a perfect game last June, is no longer a Tiger. He's been designated for assignment. Tigers signed Brad Penny, and the Tigers needed to make a room on the 40-man roster for Penny. And Armando Galarraga is the odd man out. He'll have to clear waivers. If he doesn't, he will no longer be a Tiger. And Brady Hoke has begun putting together his staff at Michigan. The new defensive coordinator is current Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator Greg Madison. He'll leave the Ravens and join the Wolverines. We're all caught up, and we're going to be talking, well, maybe we'll get some good news here. We're going to be talking about automotive issues, the auto show in full swing, and we'll find out what's new on the automotive front as we continue here on MPS in the Morning. Hence the Jimi Hendrix one supposes. What a way to bring us back here and wake us up here on a chilly Wednesday morning. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick. You can get in touch with us, by the way. The email, mpsbigshow@aol.com. That's mpsbigshow@aol.com. Friend us on Facebook. I know I have. Michael Patrick Shields in the Morning. Just type that into your search when you're on Facebook. Or join us on the air. Call the studio at 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. And, I didn't know this. You can follow us on Twitter as well at MPS in the AM, MPS in the AM. Now I'm going to have to be a Twitter follower, all right? So we're joined in studio right now by George Volman, the automotive insider. And, George, we've been sort of searching for good news this morning. Maybe there's some emanating from Cobo in Detroit, where the North American International Auto Show is in full swing. You've been down at the show. What'd you find out?
Well, first of all, this year is more upbeat than I have seen probably in a half a dozen years. New displays and new automobiles, and an excitement that I, quite frankly, is part of the upswing in the automobile cycle, which is what we're going through right now. And a lot of good products, both electrification products as well as brand new gasoline products, but both from the big three, which really steal the show, and then from some of the foreign entries, like Porsche is now back in after 3 years, and so on and so forth. So it's a very positive show.
Let's talk about those electrification products. How close are we to just doing away with gas stations, I suppose?
Well, that's a ways off, because they have to get the range of these automobiles up. But what was really interesting is I spent a little bit of time with BYD, which is a Chinese manufacturer, which, by the way, Warren Buffett just bought 10% of their company. And they claimed that their electric cars, which, by the way, are nothing to write home about in terms of aesthetics, but could do 186 miles in range, okay? Which is 86 miles more than what is being purported from, some of the electrics that are coming from the domestics later on this year. So this is where the battle's going to be, and it's very, very interesting to watch it.
Who's going to wind up with the upper hand?
You know what? I wouldn't count the Chinese out, but on the same token, I think you're going to be surprised when Ford comes out with their Focus this year. I think they've underpromised at this point, and they may come back and over-delivered.
We talk about the turnaround in the auto industry. General Motors is paying back their federal loans. Chrysler a little bit slower in paying theirs back, and of course Ford didn't take any loans at all. And Ford has turned out to be the most profitable of the big three, even though again all three are beginning to post profits again.
That is correct, and the bailout with General Motors was basically manifested itself with the fact that they don't have a lot of brand new products, coming, and part of that is because they'll even admit that they're probably about 2 years behind the cycle, so they've got some catch up to do. But I wouldn't count them out. They've got some very talented people at General Motors.
How do we manage to get into a fix like this?
Quite frankly, I think the top people at all the companies need to hold themselves accountable.
Well,
they allowed this to happen.
Here's what I don't understand, George. We had the same thing happen in the 1970s. The Arab oil embargo caught the American auto industry with their pants down. All we had was big gas guzzlers out there. And then as soon as gas spikes up to $3 or $4 a gallon, as it did a couple of years ago, same situation. We're heavily into the huge SUVs, and then people want the fuel-efficient cars. I don't understand why you don't learn from history, how you could have the precise same thing happen twice in a lifetime.
Well, and the sad part is that it was actually 4 times. Let me give you the rest of it. 73, 79, if you remember the Iranian oil embargo. 1990-91, we went to the Gulf for a war. That was another big spike, and then this last time around. And what I will tell you is that what I see from Ford Motor Company specifically is that they're saying they're going to electrify their cars, and they're going to be best in class regardless of the brand. So in other words, if you have a truck that's going to be best in class in fuel economy, it doesn't matter what happens in the marketplace, they'll still get their share. But they're moving toward the more fuel efficient, and they're not going to stop. And they're going to force this issue in the marketplace, but they're going to have to do what the consumers want. So we'll see how this plays out, but I think they've learned the lesson. They're done with the oil. In fact, the seats in the new Focus are plant-based. They're not petroleum-based.
Really?
Yeah, that's where they're going with this. There's plenty of plants. They could actually buy acreage and grow it. You know what? And I'm being a little bit simplistic because there's a lot more science behind it. But I think they've learned their lesson.
Okay.
But it only took them 4 times.
And you say there's a different tone at Kobo this year.
There's no question. It's upbeat. Even Chrysler, who in some respects is the same as General Motors in terms of a little bit being behind, had a great display, and they put their best foot forward with the minivans and also starting to showcase the Fiat product.
And George, news a couple of days ago that General Motors, for the first time, I think it's in 3 years, will advertise in the Super Bowl. So just another little sign.
That's right. It's coming back, and it's going to come back strong. There's going to be fewer employees, obviously, because they had to resize their companies. But I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. It's really upbeat.
All right, George, we'll count on you for further updates. You're on the road next week?
Yeah, on the road to NADA next week or the following. Actually, we'll be late next week, and then I'll be back in town, and we can report out.
All right, George Vollman, the Automotive Insider. Thanks for coming by this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice talking to you. All right, George Vollman, Automotive Insider. We will take a break, and we'll be back with more as we continue here on a Wednesday morning on MPS in the AM. And it is 51 minutes past the hour. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick on this Wednesday morning. We just talked about from the beaches to Lake Huron and Mackinac and everything else. Let's head on all the way up to Marquette, shall we, Amanda? Northern Michigan University, the venue. And we're going to be joined right now on the other end of our line by Steph Martin, a Northern Michigan University student. And Steph, thanks for joining us this morning. My notes indicate you work at the Northern Michigan University Outdoor Rec Center. We should point out, by the way, it's Wildcat Wednesday here on MPS in the morning. You've got some pretty neat trips coming up here in the near future.
Yes, definitely. Wintertime is always kind of a special time to do something really new and exciting. So,
well, I for example, visiting ice caves near Eben. Where's Eben, and what's going on with the ice caves?
Eben is about a half an hour drive southeast of Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happens is this, seepage from the ground drips over this little cliff, and it's, no taller than 20 feet, and it creates these huge, in the wintertime, these huge ice walls and ice pillars that are just absolutely gorgeous to look at. So we like to take our students out there to show them, some of the natural wonders that happen up here in the UP.
And you get a chance to climb the caves, ice climbing?
We don't climb the ice caves in Eben, only because those are on a wilderness protected area.
Okay.
But actually where we do go ice climbing is in Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, where some of the best ice in the world is formed.
And it even sounds beautiful.
Yes. You're only a 10-minute walk from the beautiful shores of Lake Superior, and in the wintertime, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Everything is kind of really still and beautiful looking.
And you've got some cross-country ski trips and also snowshoe hiking going on.
Yep, we like to take our students to a lot of regional places and local places so that they can experience more than just what's to offer on campus. And a lot of these places are only a 5-minute walk off of campus. That's the really cool part about it.
Well, it all sounds pretty nice. What's the weather like as we join you live here this morning?
Well, I went downhill skiing last night, and it was windy and blowing snow everywhere. We got a couple of inches, and it's about maybe 10 at the highest.
Okay, so really not terribly different from what we're experiencing here down in the central part of the state, at least as we join you in Lansing. I can't speak for what it's like, for example, right now in Grand Rapids, but right now in Lansing we're at 19 degrees, so we're in the dead of winter. Was it the scenery and the outdoor attractions, or at least the chance to interact with nature? Did that play a role in your decision to attend Northern?
Definitely. I feel like that's a really big role in a lot of the students that come up here, just because you come up and you visit the campus. And I also went and visited Lake Superior State, and this campus especially, there's so many trees, everything's such a short distance to walk. I've lived here for 4 years, and I haven't had to have a car.
Wow.
I have a bike, and I'm able to do a 10-minute walk to anywhere I need to go in Marquette.
There you go. Well, this is going to sound like a line that you use when you're talking to a college girl. What are you majoring in?
I am majoring in outdoor recreation, leadership, and management.
What sort of career do you expect that will lead to?
Well, there's kind of a couple of options that I am looking at. Being a senior, I am looking at doing possible interpretive designing for brochures or those really cool signs that you see going into national parks, designing those kinds of things. And then I'm also looking at doing what I do now, and that's student programming or program coordinating so that other people can enjoy the outdoors the way that I like to enjoy the outdoors.
Did you grow up in a rural environment where you had a lot of exposure to the outdoors?
Kind of. My parents were really active in the summer times going camping and visiting national parks, and that's really what got my foot in the door of going into outdoor recreation, because as a young child, my parents sent me to Girl Scout camp, and we went on trips. I went sea kayaking in the Apostle Islands. I went backpacking on Isle Royal, and that's when I decided this is what I want to do.
Well, there you have it. Steph, I'll tell you what, one thing you might also want to consider a career in broadcasting. Great job. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Steph Martin, a student at Northern Michigan University, with some of the things going on up there. And there's more than just classroom activities that would attract one to Northern. And again, it's Wildcat Wednesday here on MPS in the Morning. We'll take a break, and we're going to come back and visit with U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow as we continue here on MPS in the Morning. And from Metropolitan Toronto, tell us about that.
Yes. Well, if you remember, a number of years ago, it started back in 2003, there were all the headlines in Michigan about the city of Toronto deciding to shut their landfill and truck all their trash into Michigan. And, of course, we don't want to be Canada's landfill, and a lot of concerns about the trucks on the roads and health and safety and so on. So a number of things were tried to stop that, and nothing was moving very quickly. So I reached out to the Ontario Minister of the Environment and started talking, and we ended up negotiating a 4-year phase-out of their trash from all the cities, from Ontario and the other cities around Ontario. And so that 4 years was up in December 31, and we've tracked it very closely for 4 years and monitored it. They met the agreement, and as of December, there are 40,000 fewer trash trucks coming into Michigan, and that's a 1.5 million tons. So that's a big deal, and it's a good thing. You know, we've got less trash trucks coming in. The challenge for us is that the amount that's left comes from private businesses, from auto plants, other facilities that contract privately for with trash trucks, and that's tougher to stop. There's nobody really to negotiate to try to do it voluntarily. So for the second step, we're going to be focused on how do we change the economics in Michigan, because right now the economics of it, meaning that it's much cheaper to dump in our landfills than in other places, and so I think that state needs to look at that, and I'm going to be focused on that now for the rest of the trash.
I hate to ask, but is this a moneymaker for Michigan, bringing in trash from Canada?
Well, it is, although the fees at the landfills are very, very low, but it is for the township or the local unit of government. It does bring in some dollars. But, for instance, our fees at charges at landfills are about 21 cents a ton to put something in a landfill. In Illinois, it's $2. In Wisconsin, it's almost $13 a ton. So they don't get the out-of-state or out-of-country trash because it's just not economical. We get it, and which unfortunately just means more trucks, more ripping up the roads, health and safety concerns, and so on. And I think if folks that live around a landfill have been willing to do that, it ought to be space that's available for Michigan residents, because it's a hassle to live around a landfill, and we ought to make sure we're saving that space for Michigan people and Michigan businesses.
Shifting gears, Senator, two things that I wanted to talk about with you before we let you get on with the business of running the country. And I suppose it really doesn't matter the order in which we take them. What's your take on the grandstanding going on in the House of Representatives with respect to the repeal, quote unquote, of the health care law?
Well, I think that we should be making improvements on things that need to be fixed. There's a provision for small businesses on 1099 reporting that I think should be repealed, and I've actually put in legislation to do that. But I don't want to completely throw out something that's beginning to work for Michigan citizens. I mean, we've got parents now that can call up the doctor when their children get sick rather than fighting with the insurance company or getting blocked because of a pre-existing condition. And a lot of young people now who are able to stay on their parents' insurance until age 26. And we've got a whole group of senior citizens in Michigan that are going to see their prescription drug costs cut in half this year if they're caught in the gap in Medicare coverage, and I sure don't want to see them have their prescription drug costs go back up. So right now, with what is beginning to phase in with the health care bill is really what we've called a patient's bill of rights that gives families the freedom to be able to make medical decisions with their doctor without being concerned about pre-existing conditions or being dropped if they get sick, or limits on the kinds of treatments they can get if their child has cancer, leukemia, or some other disease. Sure. And those are all very, very important, very good things that allow people to be able to have the health care that they need. So
Senator,
I certainly don't want to see those things go.
Right, and the reason I used the word grandstanding is because repeal, it's going to pass in the House. The Republicans have a majority, and they vote in lockstep, but there's no chance it's going to pass in the Senate. There's no chance that President Obama would do anything but veto it if it did pass the Senate.
Well, that's true, and I think we've got, and the big reason is we don't want to go back to just uncontrollable 20 and 30% rate increases every year. I mean, we're still seeing rates go up right now until the full new system of competition is put into place for our small businesses. But I remember discussions with General Motors talking about how they were spending more on health care than steel for their automobiles. Mm-hmm. And we've lost jobs because of that. Sure. I mean, uncontrollable rising healthcare costs have cost us jobs. So as we turn this corner and begin to bring costs down over time, and we give the freedom to families to be able to know that they can talk to the doctor and that medical decisions will be made on what's best for their child or for them, not what is best for the insurance company, I think that it's going to be a better system over time.
Senator Debbie Stabenow, our guest. Senator, there was so much disappointment, I don't have to tell you, especially among Democrats, about what the Senate was able to accomplish, and more specifically not able to accomplish, because in the last Senate it turned into a situation where instead of needing a 51-vote majority, you needed 60 on every vote. There was a lot of talk about filibuster reform. Has it happened? Where does that stand? Is it going to happen?
Well, I'd like to see changes. I don't know if that's going to be able to happen, but I support making changes that basically just make it public what folks are doing. Right now, the rules and the Senate are such that you can object to moving forward on something and then leave the floor and never have to talk again, and it's technically called a filibuster, but yet you don't have to talk. And so, I think that the old days that everybody thinks about with Mr. Smith going to Washington, where you have to stay on the floor and talk, you have to own it, you have to be responsible. I'll never forget when we, over and over again, have fought to continue unemployment insurance for people who lost their jobs through no fault of their own, people who never lost their job before in their life, but because of this recession, have been caught in a horrible situation. But we would see folks go to the floor and object and leave. And then we would have to go through this whole long process and 60 votes and so on. But they never had to stay on the floor, so people didn't really know that they were the ones that were holding this up. So I want to see transparency, people having to own it, having to stand up and say, yes, I'm the one who thinks that in this recession we should not be extending unemployment benefits.
I can't imagine, Senator Stabenow, anyone who would oppose such a thing. I think it'd be great for the country to see people actually have to stand up there and argue their point of view, and even if that takes 3 days or what have you. Senator, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Great to talk with you. Thanks.
I enjoyed it. Senator Debbie Stabenow. We'll get to the other end of the political spectrum in a moment. We'll be joined by Congressman Mike Rogers. Rich Kincaid, the Republican from Brighton. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick here on Wednesday morning. And Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick this morning. I'll be back with you again on Friday, by the way. We look forward to that. Right now we're in a bit of a holding pattern. Mike Rogers, the congressman from Brighton, we are awaiting his call. And also we are awaiting the arrival of clowns. And I'm looking forward to that because I will be able to use my favorite line in radio, which I've only used one on one previous occasion, and that was when I was a student at Michigan State University working at WKAR. It was my work-study job. So I'm like a sophomore, and there was a clown convention in Lansing, and my job was to phone up whoever was in charge of the clown convention and produce a feature story on this for radio. And my first question was, of course, so what are you clowns doing down there? So we're going to use that again if and when the clowns appear and arrive here in our studio. So we're waiting eagerly the appearance of the Shriner Clowns this morning. And again, Mike Rogers scheduled to be with us here in the near-term future. It's Wildcat Wednesday here on MPS in the Morning, brought to you by Northern Michigan University. Earlier in the program, we spoke with Northern Michigan University student Steph Martin about some of the great outdoor activities they've got going on there, while the young people are, in fact, not studying, taking a break from the studies. And, boy, I'll tell you what, you want to talk some of the natural beauty of Michigan. You're going to find a lot of it around northern Michigan, and so Steph was sharing some stories about that with us. Elsewhere in the news this morning, a pomp yesterday in Washington, D.C., as the president of China, President Hu, arrived in the United States for 3 days of talks with U.S. leaders, including President Barack Obama. I was thinking about this. If you were to go back 30, 40 years, this would be such an enormous story. It was back in 1971 that Richard Nixon became the first U.S. president to travel to China, and that was just a huge story. And now here's the president of China traveling to visit the United States, and it's a big story, but it just hasn't been a 24/7 live coverage leading all the newscasts sort of an event. But when you think about our world today, this could be the most important summit meeting of President Obama's presidency. Obama is our number one, you can say, trade partner and trade competitor at the same time, and there are many, many issues between our two countries that need to be addressed, chief among them. I've heard three singled out, and I agree with each of the three. The manipulation of currency by China, which enables them to sell their goods often for 25 or 30% or more less than products made in America. The fact that China is dragging their feet when it comes to opening their markets to U.S. goods. And so those things will be discussed between Presidents Hu and Obama and others. And there's some controversy. President Obama is staging a state dinner for the president of China. I'm not exactly sure why that's a controversy, but some people are saying that since we're in such a snit with China that they shouldn't be having a state dinner. I don't ascribe to that point of view. You have a world leader in, and you have a state dinner. That's just the way things go. Oh, and another issue, perhaps the overriding issue in this summit, the theft by China of intellectual property from the United States, primarily, of course, in terms of computers. So those are the main topics up for discussion in this summit between President Obama and President Hu of China. Joe Lieberman, the Connecticut senator who represents the Connecticut for Lieberman party in the United States Senate, will not be running for re-election in 2012. At least it is expected he will make that announcement officially later today. As the House today debates and tonight votes on a repeal of the health care law, and I'm trying to remember what it is they're calling it, the job-killing health care bill or whatever it is. Former Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist of Tennessee, who owns a health care company, which has made him billions and billions of dollars, is urging his former colleagues not to repeal the health care bill. He made those comments yesterday. There is a draft Mike Pence movement underway. At least 8 Republican state lawmakers will be gathering on the steps of the South Carolina State House today to launch an effort to draft Representative Mike Pence of Indiana to become a candidate for the 2012 Republican presidential nomination. A sad note this morning, R. Sargent Shriver, a fixture during the Kennedy years and beyond, has passed away at the age of 95. Shriver married President Kennedy's sister Eunice in 1953. President Kennedy, when he became President Kennedy, which, by the way, will be 50 years ago tomorrow, tapped Sergeant Shriver to run the Peace Corps. And Sergeant Shriver certainly did a great job with that. The Peace Corps remains to this day something of which Americans can be proud. Sergeant Shriver went on to serve in the administration of Lyndon Johnson, ran for vice president on the ticket with George McGovern in 1972, excuse me, and he went on also to found the Special Olympics, and he is the father of Maria Shriver Schwarzenegger. So Sergeant Shriver passed away at 95. According to family members, he suffered from Alzheimer's disease in his later years. Here's an interesting note out of Alabama. Alabama Republican Governor Robert Bentley, newly elected, just sworn into office, has told a church audience that he only considers Christians to be his brothers and sisters. Quoting now, "I will have to say that if we don't have the same daddy, we're not brothers and sisters," he told parishioners at a Baptist church in Montgomery on Monday, shortly after being sworn in. So he says, quote, "Anybody here today who has not accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior, I'm telling you, you are not my brother and not my sister, and I want you to be my brother." Okay. So there we have it, some of the news going on the national stage on this Wednesday morning. A few more headlines. The husband of the Congresswoman, Gabrielle Giffords, who, of course, was shot a week ago Saturday in Tucson, in an interview with local media, local television stations in Tucson, said that his wife, Gabrielle Giffords, was worried about her safety long before she was critically wounded in that attack in Tucson last Saturday, during which, of course, she was critically injured. Mark Kelly, the astronaut husband of Gabrielle Giffords, told KVOA television that she felt it was a possibility, pretty much exactly what had happened. There had been many threats against her and against other members of Congress. And one wonders, if the concerns were there, why steps weren't taken to protect the Congresswoman. Meanwhile, reports are surfacing today that a surveillance video captured the entire attack. In fact, CNN this morning has put together a reconstruction, and the alleged shooter, in this case, 22-year-old Jared Lee Loeffner, walked right up to Gabrielle Giffords and shot her in the face. And that is how that happened. There was a potential explosive found near a Martin Luther King Day parade in Spokane, Washington. Officials are investigating that. And another shooting incident yesterday. 2 students shot at a Los Angeles high school in what is being described as an accidental shooting. A student brought a gun to school in his backpack. It discharged. 2 students were struck. One is in critical condition. And anytime you bring a gun to school, anything that happens as a result of that action, my guess is that you can't really describe it as an accident. One note, we mentioned a moment ago how important this summit meeting is between President Hu of China and President Obama. If you go this morning to the CNN web page, there's a picture in the upper left corner. Obama hosts China's Hu at the White House, and it shows President Obama and President Hu together at the White House. Right next to it, the center page, the most important item, the larger picture is of Howard Stern with the quote, "I don't like Jay Leno." So this is what we've become now. Howard Stern not liking Jay Leno is in fact treated as bigger news, a more important event than the summit meeting between President Obama and President Hu. And I got to tell you, I don't get it. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick here on Wednesday morning. We'll take a break and be back with more right after this. Well, I tell you what, I know this isn't going to do anybody listening on radio any good at all, but I just love that live shot we get of the Capitol Dome in the morning, dawn breaking over the Capitol, and it's just lovely out there. It's a cool, crisp morning. Greetings. We have listeners this morning in Fenton. We want to say hello to them. We've got some listeners online. So hi, Pastor Mascow and everybody. And if it wasn't so early, I would actually call my mom in Los Angeles and say, hey, I'm on the air. And the thing of it is, they would get up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning to hear the show. I don't want to disrupt their sleep. So I'll just call them later and say, you can listen to the podcast. You know, I mean,
Don't do that to your mom.
I know, but she would.
Get up so early.
She absolutely, that's why I don't. She absolutely would. So so later today, we will have listeners in the greater Los Angeles area. Actually, several of them. Yeah, you see that story about the superstorm hitting Los Angeles? It was like a big scare headline yesterday. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, did a feasibility study, if you will, sort of like the fake Hurricane Katrina that they did a couple of years before Katrina actually hit. And this thing said that if what they called a superstorm hit Southern California, it would overwhelm the aqueduct system. It would ruin the drinking water. Water would rush in from the oceans, and it might take 2 or 3 years to get their drinking water back. It would affect millions of people. And somebody ran with it, saying that, oh, a superstorm is coming, whatever a superstorm is. And it turns out it was just the study itself was real, but the media hype surrounding it was a bit overblown. And it was an Orson Welles effect where people were concerned that, oh my, there's a storm coming and we're all going to die. But it's, I actually Googled it last night because it sounded to me, the report I'd heard, was like it was going to hit Wednesday or Thursday. But turns out they'll be okay, we think, for the foreseeable future. You can never tell with Southern California. That place could drop off into the ocean at any time.
You can't.
And my family all lives out there, and God bless them. But I worry about that from time to time. Of course, then they'll say it's 83 degrees today. What's it there? 16. So there you have it. Time to talk television. I saw a study this week that said Americans watch 39 hours of television every week, which strikes me as a lot. But then I'm thinking, if you factor in my football, I'm probably right there with you. So. Good topic to talk about. Mike Hughes is here in studio with us. Mike, thanks for joining us. Amanda's going to help me on this segment because, again, the only things I watch on television, I probably list everything I watch on television, football, many other sports.
Other than, of course, there's going to be a great doubleheader this week with
the
Packers and Bears starting it out. But you were missing something. You got to watch a lot more than that. You got to put in your full 39 hours because let me tell you.
Well, I watched The Middle, Modern Family. The comedy's on ABC on Tuesday night. I'll watch Frontline, which is an excellent documentary, of course, on PBS, and I watch American Experience.
Yeah, and there's much more you've got to watch, although American Experience is terrific. Now, the ABC comedies you're talking about, those are Wednesday comedies. They're tonight, all new shows the entire night on ABC. But the competition they got, because all of a sudden tonight is the season opener for American Idol with this new group.
I've never watched it. Never watched it. Never gonna.
Now, that's something that it's fine for you to not watch it. Just don't admit it in public, okay?
Oh, no, I'm going to be myself. I'm always myself. I don't have any problem with people who watch it. That's the thing I don't understand. It's like people get upset with you when you tell them you don't like a food that they like. What difference does it make?
Well, people brag sometimes about I don't watch much TV, and that impresses me about as much as someone who says I don't read books or I don't listen to music. TV is an important and fascinating thing, and if you cut that out of your life, you're missing something important. Now, sure, there's a lot of junk you can see, but it's fascinating. For instance,
I'll tell you some junk I'm watching right now. Okay. A new program on the Golf Channel called Pipe Dreams.
And it is a good one, too.
Have you heard of this?
I have seen it. I've seen the first 2 episodes.
I missed last night. I forgot to TiVo it.
Okay, there's a fellow named Mark Burke who was a pro golfer, and he all of a sudden went bankrupt.
He's 53 years old.
It was partly because his family went bankrupt and partly because he was living with Beverly Johnson, the supermodel, and they got in a fight. Anyway, he's literally living in a giant construction pipe while trying to get his career back.
The guy won the California State Amateur Championship.
And here he is trying to get back his game while being homeless and trying to get on a seniors tour.
It's maybe the really saddest damn thing I've ever seen. Yeah. I don't know. It really, to me, bumps up against the line of exploitation.
No, it doesn't at all because it's done so quietly and it gets you rooting for the guy. That's why most reality TV show, when it's good, works because these are real people that you root for.
Yeah.
When it's bad, it's the Kardashians. It's a bunch of rich kids that are running around doing stuff. But boy, in American Idol, you're rooting for these young singers to be something, and so
There you go.
think you can dance.
Oh, we
Pipe
watched
Dreams.
that. My daughter and I love that show.
Oh, there's
yeah.
some fantastic dancers, and so
We were a little disappointed at the end where there's a disclaimer that points out they're professional dancers, though. But hey, you know.
Okay. But so a good reality show when it's good works really well, and plus there's just a lot of good other TV.
My
stuff.
daughter and I would watch Rock of Love when it was on. The reason being, these girls were so badly behaved, and I would tell my daughter Laura, if you find yourself doing that, do something else. So it was really, we use that sort of as a training field. We got to take a break. A lot more to talk about. Amanda, I'll let you run the next segment, okay? We're done. We've exhausted my television knowledge, so we'll let Amanda take over. When we continue, a lot more to talk about on the Tube. It's MPS in the morning, and we'll be right back. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick here on this Wednesday morning. Amanda Wall, our producer, making me feel like I'm about 100. She's talking about TV shows that she watched when she was 11, and it got me thinking about TV shows I watched when I was 11. And when I was 11, it would be I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched, things of Batman, for example. And when you were 11, Amanda?
Home Improvement, I had Jonathan Taylor Thomas on my wall. And Kirk Cameron was, I think, a couple of posters. He's a little bit before, but Full House and Family Matters.
There we
those
go.
were all the
Sure.
shows that I watched.
She's so young and perky and cute. It's great. Mike Hughes, the TV critic, is with us here in studio. Take it away, guys. American Idol tonight. It's all the talk.
I really want to know if this is going to last.
Yeah, we're going to see. It's going to be a big difference because you got to look at here is Steven Tyler and J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, as two of the judges alongside Randy Jackson. First question is how it's going to be different. Well, it's going to be a little more upbeat. It's going to be fun, maybe almost too positive. Here's one statistic. Where they give you the gold ticket and they send you on the Hollywood round? This year they gave out 325 gold tickets. In past years, they've given up 160, 170, stuff like that. So almost twice as many. So in other words, they just got too bubbly, too generous at some points. But when you see the little clips of it, you can see that there's going to be kind of a little bit more of an emphasis on fun between these three judges, a little bit less probably of the negativity. And also, Steven Tyler was on the phone yesterday. We were doing another conference call interview with him, and he was just, this guy is almost super bubbly. He almost can't stop talking in a Ted Nugent, David Lee Roth kind of sense, So, at least it'll be a more upbeat show for several weeks, and we're going to have to see what happens. We got 4 weeks of auditions coming first, starting with New Jersey tonight and New Orleans on Thursday. It's going to go on like that, and then there's going to be a new Las Vegas round where the kids can, if they want to, do one original song they wrote themselves. That's for the first time.
But do you think, is Randy going to end up taking the Simon?
Randy will be much more important. Not the Simon sense from being negative, but the Simon sense from getting the last word. There's always been a problem with the show, which is Randy has always been first, and he's usually been right. So the second person, whoever it is, has had very little to say. They've just said what Randy said in other words. Paula Abdul was pretty much useless when she was next to Randy. Then they brought in Ellen DeGeneres or Cara DiGuardia. They did the same thing. They just repeated whatever Randy said. So I'm glad to see now Randy will usually be the last person to speak. We'll hear the other two first, and those are strong-minded people. I think it'll make it a little more interesting. There won't be a negative soul like Simon there. There are very few Simons in the world, so we'll just have to live without that.
Is this going to regenerate the show, though, you think? Do you think this will help kind of boost it back? Because I think for a while it started to become one of those shows where it's the same. They're looking for the same
they said the same things.
Personalities.
Yeah, and they said the same things, and they got picked lately 2 straight white guys with guitars who were boring, that kind of thing. So, yeah, part of it will be different. There'll be a lot of curiosity effect to see the judges. Part of it, let's hope they don't keep saying over and over again, make it your own.
And they're letting kids in. You can be as young as 15.
15, yeah. The show was originally 18, then they cut it down to 16. Now they've cut it down to 15. They point out, hey, if Justin Bieber can be number 1 at 15, why not say 15? Okay, so now it goes 15 to 28. So the show will be different in that way. I think it'll be more fun at first, but let's face it, the big problem with the show in the last couple of years hasn't been the judges or the system. It's been a really dull set of finalists. You've got to have something. You've got to have David versus David, Cook versus Archuleta. That was interesting. Adam Lambert was sensational. But this last year with Lee DeWise, it just was not interesting. So let's face it, there's a lot of interesting people there. You got to try to get those most interesting ones closer to the finals.
And I have a question kind of outside that realm. Regis Philbin, how is he going to stay on Regis and Kelly? Because there's been a lot going on with him lately.
He's made it definite. Regis is definitely, this is his last season.
Okay.
And stop and think about this now. It's Regis's last season. It's Oprah's last season. Larry King just left. Those three people between them have been on TV for in their shows, over 75 years. And between the three of them, they're over 200 years old. Okay? That's going to be a big change, and everybody's got a different thing. The difference is when Oprah leaves, her show leaves. So that will be a huge difference to local TV. When Regis leaves, the show stays. They just need another host.
Hey, I could do that.
You could do that. There's going to be about 10 million candidates for that job, so get in line. Everybody's got a different choice for it. My choice, and I'm the only one, is Tom Bergeron. People look at Bergeron.
He would be good.
Yeah, most people look at that and they say, because he's like Doll Dancing with the Stars, home videos. A zillion years ago, he hosted a Fox morning show, and he's actually a very, very clever guy.
All right.
So I'd like Tom Bergeron. I'll put you on my list somewhere.
Appreciate that, Mike. Thanks very much. Well, the storyline continues. Mike Hughes, our TV critic, joining us in studio. Nice job, Amanda.
Thank you.
You do a heck of an interview. when they need to replace Kelly, hey.
Oh,
How about Rich?
Can be bubbly and sing
Rich and Amanda, I can see it happening now. All right, we're going to take a break. Mike Reagan's going to join us at the top of the hour. We're going to talk about his new book and a little Reagan family controversy as well. It's coming up here on MPS in the morning. I'm Rich Kincaid, and I'll be right back.